This is Unpivot, the show for Excel and Power BI fans and anyone who loves chatting about data. I'm Win Hopkins.
I'm Sue Bays.
I'm Giles Mail.
And I'm the demoted into fourth place, Mark Proctor.
You left us. You left us to go on holiday. How very
1 week,
rude.
and then I get moved into last place. So I now need all you lot to go on holiday, so I can move.
I didn't know it was a ranking. If I'd known it had been a ranking, I would have been very insulted from the start.
Yeah.
Now you're there. I'm not. It's fine.
Yeah, but you know what?
Christian was very good as well.
Christian was good.
It was very good.
I mean, I listened to last week. Now I must say, Giles, you can stop your little man crush on Christian now. Oh, Christian, your beard is so nice. Oh,
I like your beard,
Christian Angel, your name sounds like a movie star. You can stop that now because I'm back. All right, but you know your whole man crush thing. It was sickening, to be honest. Sickening.
If he's just new and different, what can I say?
He's so fickle, Mark. So fickle.
I know you moved on so quickly.
I've actually even got I've been playing with the technology. Sorry for those people on the pod listening, but I've actually created a banner that says "Welcome back, Mark."
Look at that!
That's very nice.
So there's a nice little banner going across the screen.
He's touched, I can tell.
Yeah,
lovely.
I think there's a tear into the corner of my eye.
Actually, I've gone one step further. Okay.
Oh, go on.
So, jingle. You got a jingle.
There's a jingle. There's a jingle. So let me find. So jingle's entitled "Return of the Mark," and for our podcast listeners as well. Okay. It goes on for ages, so I'll cut it off halfway through. So here we go.
1, 2, 3, 4. Last name Proctor, first name Mark. Been away for a week on a bit of a lark. Now he's back in town. We're glad he's here to talk about Excel and his data career. Automate your work and streamline your data. He'll help you get home sooner than later. Excel off the grid and an accounting superpower. An avid viewer base think he's our Excel Jack Bauer. We're ready for his wisdom, so it's time to start the show. Sing along with us, ready, steady, go.
There we go. What do we think?
That's the thing.
I love it.
Wonderful.
I'm not turning up for the next episode because I want a song when I get back.
Yeah,
I may have one in the pipeline.
And then Win can do one for me for the best attendance.
Yeah, I might just have to do one a week. So
yes.
Let's get the lyrics back. Hold on.
For a week on a bit of a lark. Now he's back in town. We're glad he's here to talk about Excel and his data career. Automate your work and streamline your data. He'll help you get home sooner than later. Excel on the grid and an accounting superpower. An avid viewer base think he's our Excel Jack Bauer. We're ready for his wisdom, so it's time to start the show. Sing along with us, ready, steady, go. Sing along with us, ready, go.
There we go.
Amazing.
We could have that every week.
Yeah.
Whenever you present at an event, Mark, you need
Oh,
that.
hello.
You need that. That should be your walk-on track.
Yes,
done.
it should be walk on, and you can present at the bottom of the slide. I'm Excel's Jack Bauer.
Oh, it's a done deal.
Good selling point.
Amazing.
So there we go. How do we top that? I think we should.
I don't know. We've got to stop, haven't we?
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, everyone. See you in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Okay. News. What's news? What's news, everybody? Anything going on? Mark had a nice holiday.
We did.
You're back.
I am. That's it.
Yeah. Excellent. That's the news. Anybody else? News? New features? Anything that's come up?
Yes. New features. The new feature you did a beautiful podcast on, Win.
Oh, what was that?
Power BI and dynamic formatting.
Oh, my YouTube video. Yeah.
Yep, that was particularly useful. And what I also particularly liked was your content and your data source of choice.
Which was, remind me, God, my memory's gone. What was it, Sue? I remember.
It was you calculating your step count.
Oh, I did use it. I did do running themed data, didn't I? You guys
You
are rubbing off
did.
on me.
Yeah.
Oh,
I know. I thought that.
no.
I saw that, and I thought
Superb.
osmosis is working. We'll have him doing a 5K sooner rather
Oh,
than later.
the actual data source was to do with solar power generated from my solar panels. But that's a bit dull, and I use that all the time. So I thought I'll just change the measure names to like miles run and kilometers and stuff. So yeah, you obviously, getting in my subconscious. not happy about that.
Excellent.
I will say there was a double bonus from that video win, because I watched that video about the dynamic format strings, and I thought, you know what, if only they'd bring in the fact that you can format a string inside a column without going into tabular editor.
Oh, why would you not?
I then went down a rabbit hole and found out it's already there. You set the format to dynamic, and then you can get your format string.
Mm-hmm.
So that was go on, Sue.
Anthony Catella did a whole session for us this Tuesday on my meetup group about formatting strings, dynamic format strings. So, and I found out, which I didn't know, it was very amiss of me, that, you know, you have it in 3, the plus, the negative. The third one is the 0 value.
Yeah.
You're nodding very wisely. I didn't know that.
It's old Excel magic, that is, under the hood. Yeah, the semicolon separating the positives, negatives, and zeros. And then also text after it.
Oh, what, the fourth one's a text one, is it?
Yeah, in Excel. I don't know if it's the same in the Power BI.
Oh, I'll try that. Didn't know that. Try that.
Because you can't do the little red, you can't do the square brackets with red in Power BI either, which you can in Excel. So again, that's
I wonder if you could, if you used Unicode.
Yeah, not sure. But
You probably can't make it red. You'd have to use conditional format, wouldn't you?
Conditional formatting and stuff.
Okay,
I'd also like to say happy XLOOKUP day to everybody, which I realized it was today. So August, anybody want to guess what year XLOOKUP hit beta channel?
I bet it's earlier than we think.
Well, it was after dynamic arrays, wasn't it? Because they claimed it's a dynamic array function, which I don't think it really is. So I'm going to go 2019.
So I have no idea. So I'm going to take Mark as a base and go for 2018.
I'll go
Correct,
2020.
Sue's correct. August 2018.
I said it was going to be
6
earlier.
years. 6 years.
Who started with I have no idea and then guessed the right answer? That is.
Yeah, but that's only because I used your knowledge as a basis for my guesstimate.
Can I leave a cryptic challenge to the three of you? Actually, Mark, you can't answer this because you kind of know what I might be doing. Can I tell you what I've got on my to-do list?
But you don't know whether. But you don't know whether it's ever going to be released.
Can I guess?
Sorry,
you don't know if it's ever going to happen, do you?
I don't know whether what I'm planning to do will ever actually be releasable. But anyway, you're already giving away too much. Can I tell you what I'm doing today and tomorrow? I'm going to give you a set of things on my to-do list, and you've got to, or listeners have got to guess. Number 1, I've got to purchase multiple boxes of popcorn and hot dogs, but not eat them. Number 2, I've got to find a fur coat that I can wear tomorrow. Number 3, a fur coat. Yeah. Number 3, I've got to make sure Deb Ashby can do a really good can-can dance. Number 4, I'll spend all day in pool doing something very weird and wonderful. That's all I'm telling you. Work related. I'll leave that.
Work related.
Work related.
So there you go. I'm leaving that cryptic challenge out there in the ether.
I think even the tax man might be going, this, Giles, is it really work related?
Yeah. Is that what this is? Just grounding out the foundation for you to make a tax claim on all these things you're buying?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Do you know, Mark?
I do know. I can't tell anything.
Yeah,
I once had a client. I once had a client who legitimately purchased an inflatable palm tree for work requirements. So I mean, it's not. They're not the weirdest things, Giles. So I think you might just get it through.
Cool. Yeah. All right. I might be able to update you in a matter of weeks or months. We'll see. Don't know yet.
Okay. Keep us posted.
I will.
Then in terms of features, another news, the other Power BI one I liked was the you can do paginated reports in Power BI, so you can actually set up reports to print like Excel exports or PDFs, but you can now sort of do dynamic scheduled ones based on people's email addresses and things. So you can just sort of have a data set with a list of email addresses and people's names and maybe their department, for example. And then you can just say this department maps to this reports department. And I want to schedule this paginated report to be exported at 7 o'clock every morning on a Monday. And it'll be filtered to those people's emails by those departments. Pretty cool.
I haven't played with that yet, but that sounds lots of fun to play with. That sounds brilliant, actually, because it just automate it. So you don't even need Power Automate.
No.
Nice.
It's a nice thing.
Have you done a video?
Not yet. I was just playing with it the other day to see what the little traps and tricks are. So I'm still playing around with it. I'm not really sure. I like the fact that you can just, you could spell somebody's name wrong and they wouldn't get the report. I don't like that little bit that much.
Yeah, it is nice.
Something to play with.
What about the?
Oh, sorry, go on.
What about the Excel update that we all I think saw yesterday with adding the period symbol to a range reference where it's going to trim the top and the bottom for you for empty cells. I think that was what it was. That looked very interesting, and then I got really excited, and then I was like, when would I use this if I'm doing tables? I think it's still useful.
Yeah. It is like that, isn't it? Sometimes you go, that's so cool. When am I going to use
it? I want to be able to use that. When am I going to use it?
I think its aim, if I'm right, is to try and speed things up a little bit as well. So rather than referencing an entire column, well, you can still do that, but you can also trim that reference dynamically just to the data. So therefore your calcs will work a bit quicker. I think that's the main point, unless I'm missing something.
I think it's a red herring, to be honest. I think all it's doing is helping people who shouldn't be doing full column references to encourage them to keep doing it. So I might be wrong. I've been wrong on at least one or two things in the past before. So I might be wrong. In like 2 weeks, I might be like, this thing's killer. You need to get hold of this. But at the minute, I'm not. I just don't know what it's for, really.
Yeah. But for anybody who hasn't seen it yet, normally if you refer from cell A1 to A10, you put a colon in between the two, A1 to A10. But now you can also put a full stop in there as well, either side of the colon, which
Why
then will. Well, this is the new Giles or Mark.
Well, that's where I was getting. I mean, any update, I generally see it and go, "Oh, that's really cool." And then I was like, "But hang on, if you're using tables or dynamic arrays, why would you do that anyway?" So I kind of came to a similar conclusion to you, Mark, where I was like, "Okay, so if you are somebody that is referencing entire columns, which we would always train people not to do anyway, I see where that's an improvement." But again, it might be stuff that I just haven't thought of or seen yet. Interesting.
If referring to an entire column didn't damage performance, would you discourage it as much?
Probably not. If you've got that trim in, I guess. I mean, I certainly wouldn't promote it over the use of tables and dynamic arrays. So
yeah.
Because there's nothing that stops somebody entering. Let's say you've referenced A1 to A10, let's say you have referenced an entire column and there's only data in A1 to A5. Therefore, your formula just shows the first 5 results. But then, Mandy in payroll comes along, doesn't have a clue about this formula, has no idea that it's in there, and just types in some stuff, right? And then suddenly it's then picked up the things that you don't want it to pick up. So I think it might solve the performance issue, but I don't think it solves the fact that you just shouldn't be doing that issue. In my opinion, if you love full column references, then you're wrong. But there we go.
I think that. Yeah, because you can put anything in there, and then when you try to pull it in, it wouldn't be good.
I'd still discourage it because I don't think. Because if you're trying to reference data, then you want to do it on a named column basis. If you're working with arrays, you're working with positions. So that's So I'm not sure what it's for, but I might be wrong. I'm happy to be wrong.
Well, I'm backing you and agree.
I'm happy for you to be wrong. In fact, I'd like you to be wrong. We can talk about it in 2 weeks.
Yeah, we can talk about it in 2 weeks. All good. Anything else? Any other news updates? Or we'll get into the question of the week otherwise.
Haven't got my scuba diving voice. I've given up on that. Got bored.
Yeah.
Couldn't find articles. Just had enough now. I think everyone was bored before me, and now I'm bored.
I've got an ultra on Saturday. Nice little ultra.
Oh, okay, another ultra. God,
Another ultra.
One a month, not enough, Sue.
Oh. This year, I've done 5 marathons and 3 ultras.
Oh my gosh, it's just
ready for Budapest, Giles.
I ate an entire packet of cherry bakewells yesterday on my own.
Oh, nice.
Now you're talking. I
like cherry bakewells
whatsoever.
Mr. Kipling, all 6.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Have you seen his banner?
So for anybody listening, I've created another banner that says, "We apologise for the gratuitous running chat. Normal service will resume shortly."
Listen for the ultras. One of our listeners said he dialed in for Excel and then heard the running and the ultras and he stayed on track.
Yeah.
So for the ultra runners, I'm doing backyard challenge.
Excellent work. Okay.
I'll stop now.
Awesome. Right. Question of the week. Mark, I think this was one of yours, was it? The actual topic about
I remember
the most dangerous features.
Most dangerous features of Excel that we still use.
Yeah, Excel or Power BI. What do we think the most dangerous features are? So do you want to start? Oh gosh. Thank you, Giles.
I won't be happy if we get through this.
No, I know.
There's no jingle.
Okay. So do we want traditional question of the day? Do we want question of the week accordion style? Or do we want question of the week hip hop style?
Hip hop.
Bit of hip hop.
Gotta hit
right,
that.
Here we go.
This is great.
Unpivot. It's a question. It's the question of the week. Excel. Power BI name. Excel. Not one and related, just data curated. You won't get frustrated, because we'll keep you updated. Unpivot. Pivot.
There we go.
Yeah.
Question of the week. As we
What
said.
would we do before AI? I've got no idea. We'd just be silent, wouldn't we?
I know.
Your AI saved me so much time, Win. I put my meetup
me on a banjo
into
or something.
Yeah. My meetup into your chat GPT, your GPT, which does the timestamps. 2 seconds later. Thank you.
It's awesome. All good. Okay, most dangerous feature. Mark, do you want to start us off?
So the reason I suggest this, because there's lots of little features that people use all the time that actually, and we still use them. So for example, I mean, the first one I'm going to mention is the subtotal feature. I don't mean the function, but the subtotal feature that groups things together and it's just one click away. And it's like, oh, isn't that so nice? Yeah, you've just destroyed all of your data. And now in like 4 minutes, you'll be like, why did I do that? But it's too late. You've already done it. So there's that. But then, because I look back, I had an old blog post I've long since deleted with the 7 most dangerous features in Excel. So I went back to look at that, and there was one there. I think, that's a real problem. Is that grouping sheets, right? You just group sheets because you want to format or change them all, and then you type some stuff, and then you forget that you've grouped them, and you keep going, and you're happily saving. You don't undo anything, and then half an hour later, you're like, well, you get the expletive come out, with a little thing over your mouth with all the symbols, and then you realise you've just wrecked everything. And if you're on, SharePoint or OneDrive, you can roll it back to however long ago. You've only wasted an hour. But if you've not, guess what? You're phoning up IT going, can you restore that back up from 2 weeks ago or the last time they backed up? And you're just swearing to yourself over and over again. So it's so simple. We all do it, but equally, it's just such a problem. And every time you do it, you got to think, I need to remember. And it's a bit like, Giles's example. Was it last time, the time before? I think you mentioned about hidden rows and hidden columns and other things. And that's another one that you do it because it just keeps things tidy. Because sometimes you do want to keep things tidy, but equally, if you forget they're there, then it's a big problem. So they're kind of three of mine: subtotal, grouping sheets, and hidden rows and columns. I still might use them, but it's just a risk.
I've got one. Manual calcs. And I know some modelers love manual calcs, but I really tried to get into the mindset of manual calcs. Then you can kind of make changes, go to your outputs, hit F9, you see things move, and you're like, cool, saw it. But my God, I just forgot all the time. And you'd model for an hour, tapping away, and oh, this is great. And then you're like, oh, hang on a minute, I haven't hit F9 for an hour. You hit F9 and all breaks and goes to value errors. You're like, oh God, what have I done? So manual, I know it's really useful for some modelers, especially when your model gets really big, but it's so dangerous when you forget.
There was something I didn't realize when somebody on LinkedIn, so on the Unpivot page on LinkedIn, somebody mentioned that if you send a sheet to someone with manual calc enabled and they open that file, then other files, they go to manual calc as well.
So the manual calc bug, so it's changed now. It has changed in 365. So it used to be that the first workbook that you opened in that session of Excel, whatever it opened, it set you, because calc is an application level setting. So it changed all your workbooks to manual calc. And if you opened up other workbooks and then saved them, they then became manual calc workbooks. Just because you'd saved it, you'd then send it to somebody else. If that was the first workbook they opened, that would become manual calc, and it would spread like a bug. Like a virus, and so for a while I used to have this add-in that before you clicked save, a little box would pop up and it would say, "Are you sure you want to save this? It's in manual calc mode."
Nice,
clever.
Right.
Well, actually, I did that originally. I had to change it so that after you'd saved it, it popped up and said, "Are you sure you want to save this?" Or "You have saved this in manual calc mode," because there was some saving bug and a whole load of other stuff. But yeah, so it was But now they've changed it so that you actually have to change the setting in the workbook. While you've got that workbook active, if that workbook's active, and then you change the setting, it only changes that one workbook. So I think it was probably 365 probably has got that. 2021 probably does. 2019 for Excel is maybe on the old version. But yeah, so it has been a big problem, but I think it's now predominantly reduced.
Good to know.
What do the three do? Are you manual or automatic?
Or automatic for everything, really.
The word now, haven't they? It used to be automatic apart from data tables, but now was it mixed something? Partial?
It's because of Python integration, because it's now where the data tables and Python are then kept in the same category because they're slower to recount.
Okay. That makes sense.
So
sorry. I can't add to the Excel.
Any Power BI or Excel?
Dangerous. So dangerous in Power BI is the auto date time. So
top of my list. So you want to explain that to folks?
Yeah. So in Power BI, if you don't have a date table and you don't change your standard settings, Power BI will add a temporary date table to every single one of your dates and gives you the ability to have a hierarchy on your dates on every single date. But what it does is it really bulks out your model, and it's just big, messy, slow. So that would be my most dangerous one. And the other thing I don't like in Power BI is when it chooses the relationships for me.
Oh, I hate that.
I hate that. Excellent.
So those are my two Power BI, but the auto date time.
Sorry, go on. I was going to say, I've wasted days like working out why my DAX doesn't work, and it turns out because and I've fallen for it several times. The first time it happened, you're like, Power BI has created a relationship. Fell for 2 months later, you do the same thing. I can't believe I fell for it again, and I just keep falling for it. And it does it on like index columns. It's like, I've created a relationship with index columns. You're like, why would I don't. Nobody wants that.
Don't choose for me. I know what I want. Yeah. I tend to have a template that I use with a date table and different things in it with that turned off. So it doesn't come up. But yeah.
I put many to many down there as a dangerous thing, just because you won't understand what your numbers are doing.
Yeah.
And then bookmarks.
Yes.
I hate bookmarks.
Power
BI bookmarks, so you can basically sort of capture whatever visuals are on your screen, especially when people are showing and hiding stuff. So you can show and hide different visuals and swap visuals out on the press of a button, which is great, right? And you can say, okay, I want to swap between this type of chart and that type of chart, or I want to clear all my filters, or I want to drill down into this. And you can get really quite creative with it. But there's no way of opening somebody else's file and working out what their bookmarks do.
Yeah.
You just can't tell. So it's just a nightmare to maintain. It's just horrible.
Yeah.
It looks cool. It's great. Pop out side panels and all this sort of stuff. But if you didn't build it and somebody didn't document it really well, you can't edit them. You can't, because you don't know what they're meant to be doing.
And originally, it's really quite complex to then understand. If you click on one, what type of filters do you want to show? Do you want them active or not active? And so there are many different settings. And like you say, if you take over somebody's, I sort of originally used them when they first came out and was really excited by the creativity. But because my reports are quite straightforward visually, I tend to stay away from bookmarks.
Yeah, different page, these days.
Yeah, make it really...
different page rather than making one page do lots of fancy things.
Just
have more pages. I think I heard Kerry Kolosko or someone talking to Rob Colley a while back, or it might not have been her, but he was saying how his PowerPoint presentations were always like really, really fancy with all sorts of animations and everything. But again, nightmare to update. Whereas other people, the person they were talking to who designed these sort of professionally, just said, oh no, they just did multiple pages with all the different look and feel, and it would just transition through them, just because it's easier to maintain, right? So same thing with the Power BI as well.
I think it sort of drills down to, just because it can, it doesn't mean you should. So we have the flexibility to do many, many things, but should you do it? Maybe not.
We had a couple of people suggest, lots of people suggest things as well.
Yeah, it's good.
So Giles's colleague Miles, hidden columns, which Mark mentioned. Yeah, a bit of a killer. Yeah. Neville said password protection.
Oh, that's caught me out sometimes.
Because it's not really any good, is it?
No, I put it into Power BI now. If I forget, I put it in Power Query, and then I've got it.
Yeah, because it's easy to. I think Mark, didn't you just do a video or something on 5 ways to hack passwords or something?
So there's 6 passwords in Excel, and 5 of them you can easily remove using my password removal tool, which well, I mean, ultimately, most of them are just text inside an XML file. So you just, I did get one comment saying someone said this is disgraceful. You showing people how this. I'm like, literally, I'm telling people how to use Notepad and delete some text and then save it. And But there's one password, which is the file open password, which does encrypt your workbook with various levels of encryption. So you actually have to go through, you have to use some form of brute force attack and go through third-party tools and things, which if you've got the passwords like we should all have with uppercase, lowercase and long strings and everything, then chances are, you won't be able to get into that again. So it is. But so Steve Cranack sent me a message after saying that if you've got a password protected itself up, if your company has set up certain settings, and I can't remember what they are, beforehand, when you create that password, your company already has like an unlock key or an unlock hash or something. Therefore, your company settings, you can send to your IT admin, I think, they can then unlock your locked Excel workbook because they've got some secret hash or key or something which enables you to do it. But they have to apply some settings first. So that was new. I didn't even know that was possible. So if your IT have set that up already, then you can unlock a password protected workbook, no matter how complex your password is. But if they haven't got that set up and you've got a complex password, then you're stuffed.
Wow.
Good to know. I'm just all pausing for thought there. Just like, what have I got that's password protected?
What about VBA? So just as another one, again, this has come from a few conversations that I've had with, mainly like Craig Hatmaker, who's a big proponent for Lambdas. And I don't know the details behind this, but lots of people tell me VBA is very dangerous because you can actually access the computer's operating system. Craig was saying like he's actually gone through VBA at companies he's worked in to update antivirus software across teams without them knowing it. Whereas for Lambdas, there's not really any security risk with Lambdas. What do you think on that?
Well, he's right. I mean, that is the VBA can access anything on your anything that you can access yourself. So anything on a C drive, anything on a network drive, and that's why Microsoft introduced the whole that if you download something from the internet, you then have to unblock it before you can then use it. So effectively, you're actively saying that you trust this document and that you're happy with it. So therefore, it means that someone has decided this document is safe and will open it. In theory, I mean, they don't do that on internally generated macros because hopefully you've got your employing staff who will not generate those kind of macros, but it's almost irrelevant because if they've got access to those things anyway, VBA won't give them access to anything they couldn't do with their mouse and keyboard. So it's kind of that's one of the reasons why they introduced the macro security, because it was a case of, someone opens up a file that's got a macro in it, it says, do you want to enable macros? And everyone just clicks, yeah, why not? Yeah. And then at that point, it can access your hard drive, your network, it can reach out to the internet, it can download anything it likes. So that's, there's a huge amount of risk with it. And that's why those security things were introduced.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Couple more just to finish this off. VLOOKUP. I'm going to chuck VLOOKUP in there and off because it's got a hard-coded value in the formula for no more reason than that. And you shouldn't hard-code. That's the other danger. Don't hard-code in formulas. Dangerous. Don't put a hard-coded column reference in a VLOOKUP. Don't use VLOOKUP anymore. Use other things. XLOOKUP day. But yeah, those offsets, indirects, all those sorts of things.
How about for VLOOKUP, the fact it's also got the last argument is a default argument, which is the one that nobody wants.
Default true, approximate match or whatever. Yeah.
So it'll give you. So if you don't know what you're doing, it'll give you the wrong answer. And by default.
Which is great, but it might look right, so that's good. A bit like DAX. I've got DAX in my dangers, Sue, as for Power BI. Just DAX. If you don't know what you're doing,
it is. Because if you don't know modeling, it will give you an answer. If you know enough DAX, it will always give you an answer, but whether it's the right answer or not. So I would agree with you.
Is it the right answer in every situation?
Yeah, it's simple as possible. And validate it. Validate.
Excellent. All right. Any other thoughts? Otherwise, we'll move on to the actual topic of the week. Roundabout on time.
Merging cells, iterations on. Just probably don't need to discuss them all, but a couple of classics, I would have thought.
I loved the dialogue in LinkedIn. It was really interesting and fun to read.
Yes, thanks everybody for taking part in that.
Full disclosure, I don't have a problem with merge cells in the right context. Because ultimately,
where's that mute button again?
Yeah, let's get Christian back.
Where's Christian?
It's such a lovely beard.
Such a great beard.
Such a great beard.
Surname, Chris
Angel. He sounds like a movie hero. He wouldn't be happy with merge cells.
He definitely wouldn't be.
Hear me out. So merge cells, the only time you're not going to use them in your data, you're not going to use them in your dynamic array calculations. The only time you're going to use it is for presentational purposes, and that's at the end of the line, right? That's the last thing you're going to do. So what's the problem? I think it's people.
I don't like it. I'm going to disagree with you. I don't like it when people have used 2 or 3 headers in their tables, and the merge cell is one of the categories that they've got the things under.
Oh yeah, but you can denest that. They've got a custom function that you just.
I can, but
it's center across section like Chris Angel does with his nice beard.
But ultimately, you shouldn't have multiple rows in your table, multiple header rows in your table anyway. So it's not merge cells that's the problem. It's the fact that
I know, and I tell people that,
principles.
and they don't listen to me. So why have you done it that way? Like, well, it looks nice.
All right. On that controversial note, let's move on. So, send your emails of complaint to Mark Proctor.
mergedcells.com.
So Emma Bennett, who is in finance and a listener, hey Emma, question on LinkedIn. So where should a newbie with zero knowledge of the sort of tools we've been discussing in the last few episodes, such as, sort of Power Query, Power BI, Python, all the different languages and things, sort of what order would you learn these things in, and where do you go to learn them? So anybody want to kick off on that one?
I'll go with the start, just with
go Sue.
My start would be kind to yourself. You can't learn it all, and learn what you either need for work or that you're interested in as a first, because you will not be able to do it all. So you really need to consider that we all, taken years, and think about what you're interested in. That would be my start.
I think that's an excellent start.
Over to you guys.
Anybody else?
I can go next.
Yeah, go.
So I would say start with purpose and not with tool itself. So if I think from a finance perspective, if we're talking predominantly about management accounts or FP&A, most of the people and I come from that background, you think in terms of debits and credits and amounts due and various other things. So you've got this accounting knowledge about how things are structured, but when you're working with data, you need to think more about in a data way. So you've almost got to retrain your brain to understand what information is, what data is, why it's different, and then how you get from information to data. Because often most accounting systems are exceptionally complex. So if you think I'm going to connect to my accounting system and pull out all of my reports, some of those you're dealing with so much data that you just can't handle it, or even how things like good received not invoice and all these other things that are rolling totals. So you end up often downloading things from accounting systems and working with those downloads, and you need them for audit purposes and other things anyway. So I'd say start with your purpose. You're going to be downloading things. Then it's a kind of whether you're working with Excel or Power BI or Tableau or something like that, there's like an underlying 7-step process, which is you take your inputs, you reshape them into data, you take that data to calculate on it, you then calculate to create some form of visualization. It could be a journal, it could be a chart, it could be anything. You then present it in some way, a dashboard or something, and then you distribute it, right? So you've got those 7 stages, and I think understanding those stages and how they work across different platforms. So in Power BI, you can pretty much do all of those things. You can go from input to your distribution. You've got you might connect to a database. You're going to use Power Query to reshape. You're going to put it into the data model. You're going to use DAX. You're going to put it into a visualization. You're going to put it into a report or a dashboard, and then you've got your Power BI service to distribute it. If you're working with Excel, that same framework, you've got your inputs that might be an Excel workbook, a CSV document, or something. You've got to understand how you manage that, like file naming conventions. Make sure you can connect to it dynamically to reshape it into data. So you've got Power Query is still there. Power Query is still the key tool. You reshape it into data, which then you can go from either I'm going to use the data model or I'm going to use tables. So if you're using the data model, you're then down to the formulas, and then formulas, you then put them into charts and other things, or you create charts from it, or you create a tabular type report. You then put that into a dashboard or something else. And again, you have to kind of present it. It might even go into a PowerPoint, and then you distribute it to your CFO or whoever it is. So the methods that you use and the technologies you use, therefore determine what your purpose is. So if your company is using Power BI, then you need to think about it in that way. If your company is not using Power BI, then it's kind of, do you even need to think about the data model and DAX and those things? So I'd say start with thinking about what your inputs are and how you reshape them into data. That is the key thing, because once you get to a data layout, you can then do almost anything you like with your inputs. So therefore, Power Query is pretty much the most important tool that we have in terms of finance. So that's the one where I think it's worth spending the most amount of time. You can then work to get your dynamic inputs, so you can connect to almost any input you like, whether it's how it's downloaded. And then once you've got that into a data structure, then it's kind of do I need to use formulas or pivot tables, and then going forward. So Power Query is in my opinion, is the most important tool. That's where it's worth spending the majority of time, so that we can get from here's my input to here's my data. Because there's that stat that everyone trots out about the fact that Forbes, I think it was 2016, 2020 maybe, did a study around it was 2016, wasn't it? Forbes did a study around data scientists and how they spend 80% of their time just preparing data for analysis. So it's kind of I mean, finance aren't necessarily data scientists, but equally they're doing those data type activities, and that's where the majority of time is lost. Anytime you're copying and pasting from, so here's my download, I'm going to copy and paste it into Excel. At that point, you've already lost the game, and you're into manual processes and manual cleaning and everything else. So that'd be my answer. Understand what data is, understand how to get your inputs into data. Therefore, Power Query is your key tool, and therefore everything else can then flow from that. And by using those, you'll then build up, hopefully, in your processes, enough headroom and enough time scope that you can then think about other tools and where you then go as to what you then need next, whether it is VBA or Office scripts or Python, but you've got some headroom to then start thinking about what those things are.
I would maybe just add a layer above that as well. So, you know, a lot of the people that we see from teams that need training, so the real fundamentals are not there. So learn the most valuable 10 functions, which we would probably all almost agree on from 1 to 10, I would have thought, with maybe 1 or 2 exceptions. Master tables, master Power Query, as you said, Mark, but there's a very clear distinction between a click button Power Query user and an M code Power Query user. And I think you can get away with being a click button Power Query user for a very, very long time. And I think just to get people and teams to that space, you could be your functions, core functions, maybe keyboard shortcuts is another one I'd throw in, actually. Tables, Power Query. And what we see a lot is once you get people there or teams there, they then very organically hit the point where they're like, oh, hang on a minute. Now I need to do something a bit different. The tools that I'm comfortable with don't seem to be able to do this efficiently or in the way that I want. And very organically, you're like, okay, well, now we need to think about Power BI. Why would we use Power BI instead of Excel and Power Query? Oh, because it does this. You know, the relational modeling thing is more appropriate. The visuals are more kind of dynamic or whatever it might be. So I think you shouldn't jump to that step where you go, oh, let's throw Tableau into this when 90% of your team can't use XLOOKUP or some ifs. Like, just get the fundamentals and then move up.
But I would say, I would agree. But for me, fundamentally, it's understanding the difference between information and data and the modeling. So, you know, I was quite taken when Mark said, because I hadn't thought of it this way, of taking your information and changing it into data, and then from data taking information, because most of what I pull in is data, but it's thinking in a different way, and it is that it's in R we call it a tidy data set, where every column is a unique thing and every row is a unique value, and it's structured accordingly. And data types, understand data types and dates, data types and dates. So, and that's what tables enables you to think about and Power Query.
So do we think, I'm really conscious of, like, the order I would recommend is the order I learnt, because it seemed to work. So I'm a bit biased, but I'm not sure I would go, I'm not sure I regret the order I learnt. So I don't know whether I'm just sort of a bit blinkered, but I think that sort of Excel is such a broad tool with such a wide use space that knowing that tool and learning about the core concepts there just opens up a broad range of, potential skills and power. And then, as you guys have already said, focusing on that, structuring the data. Where do we think, like, dynamic arrays fit into things from an Excel point of view? Are they okay? Let me say, we've got Power Query. We've got normal Excel. I use normal Excel, traditional Excel. We got with tables in there, important. We've got dynamic arrays. We've got Power Query. We got Lambdas, and we've got Python. Is Python at the bottom of that list? Is from let's say from a finance person point of view, is Python relevant, really?
I would argue it would be bottom of that list for most finance people. It really depends what you're doing. I think dynamic arrays, personally, I think dynamic arrays should now be very high on the list alongside core functions, because I just feel like you would be immediately out of touch with what most people are doing in the space, in the industry, if you don't learn them. Lambdas is a different kettle of fish. Is that the right saying? Kettle of fish? I feel like I just made that up. Yeah, cool.
It might not translate in the US or,
different thing. As I said, I was like, what does that mean? Kettle of fish.
It's anyway, I'm off topic.
Lambda is a different thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So sorry, go on, Mark.
I was going to say that I wouldn't view necessarily dynamic arrays and Lambda as outside core functions, right? Because filter is a dynamic array function, but equally filter is probably the function I use more than anything else. Okay. And so therefore you've got these dynamic array functions. So I don't think it's about a distinction between dynamic arrays and non-dynamic arrays, or core functions and non-core functions. It's the same with Lambda. So you've got, I think in my mind, there's three kinds of Lambdas. Okay, so you've got the Lambda, which is saved in your name manager, which you can then save another name manager, and it's a reusable function. You've got the Lambdas, which are effectively just Lambdas on your workbook, which don't have any helper functions, which after the bracket in the Lambda, you then put your parameters in. Or you've got a Lambda that then has a helper function on the front, such as biro, scan, reduce. And I would say that last group, which is the biro Lambda, the scan Lambda, the reduce Lambda, all of those are basically just extending dynamic arrays, which is then just core Excel functionality. Because you've got things like a sum function, right? You want to sum a row, but yet you want that to go down dynamically. Well, then, because sum's an aggregator function, so it only ever aggregates the things that it's given, you need that Lambda and something else to make it then spill down. So I think that is, while I'm not saying it's basic, I think it is I think I just group that in part of knowing formulas.
That's a good point.
Rather than being something else. But I would put Python as something different. And is that relevant for finance teams? I suspect not, because the visualizations that finance teams try to create are not generally of that kind of level that you need to have that advanced visualization that you can get from Python. So I think at the minute it's not necessarily relevant, but it would be relevant, if you're thinking about customer clustering and how you do that. It might be relevant in some areas of the work. Generally, probably not. I suspect Sue's probably, in terms of Python, Sue's probably our best person here. So
so a couple of questions. So do you have some X in Excel?
No, but there's sort of.
So that's what.
No.
So in Power BI, to have the sum iterating through the column, we have a function called, you will know, sum X, where it will do it row by row depending upon the context that you're in. So because I don't use Excel a huge amount, so that helped me understand the dynamic arrays. Python, I like Python for the libraries that it gives me outside of the basic Excel functionality. So I might use Excel for Python for things like text analysis or sentiment analysis or different things that I don't use in Excel. And to me, the beauty of Python within Excel is you don't have to have an installation of Python on your local machine. And the same when you use Fabric. But it goes back to the point you made at the beginning, Mark, is having a reason why. If you've got a reason why, then you're more likely to have Python higher in your list, maybe for forecasting or, trend analysis or something like that Excel doesn't give you the opportunity to do. And it will only come after you understand the concepts of data and data types, and maybe for things to do with dates as well. So, yeah.
I mean, I suspect for Python, there's things around identifying anomalies in your data which in Excel, it's not going to find anomalies in your data through any machine learning process. You'd have to kind of build that up yourself using formulas. So I think there are uses for Python in terms of, if you've got some data, what things stand out. What, if you've downloaded some accounting data, what thing looks odd? And you find out it's Win who's posted a journal with too many zeros on it.
Story.
Exactly. Had they had Python, they could have gone, there's a problem with that journal when it just doesn't look right. So I think there's things there that Python can be useful for.
But don't be put off for learning Python, because it's a really nice language to learn. It's it's a basic language to learn. They teach it in schools, and if you do like doing your formulas in Excel, then by all means have a go and have a play. And W3 Schools is a fantastic website to learn Python. And it helps you. What I found from understanding Python and R is that it really helps you understand how data works in itself. So probably not for financial modeling, because that's a very different skill. But if you're interested in insights from your data and telling stories and seeing what's happening, then Python and R can be quite good fun to learn. And there's little apps that you can play with on your phone. I used to have a little app on my phone and just play with it. But W3 Schools is an excellent resource for Python.
Very good. So if we move out of Excel then, and we go in terms of Power BI or automation tools. Ooh. So Power Automate, Office scripts, VBA. Do you go, and again, is this purely a case of what's your use case? Because they're very different, right? Is it a case of like you said right at the start, can you learn this if you haven't got a use case for it? Probably not. So I think Power BI for me was just a natural progression out of Excel. So it's not a big learning leap. It's just a stepping stone. And then Power Automate was really useful to help with some stuff that VBA couldn't do, or, that Power BI refreshes. So there's an overlap there between the two as well. So I love stuff that overlaps. Office scripts, haven't played with much. And then, so and VBA I tend not to use anymore. And I think I wouldn't, unless you've got VBA files that you need to update and maintain at work. I wouldn't be my first port of call.
Power Automate.
Power Automate's good.
Love Power Automate.
It's got to come down to what you're trying to do there, isn't it? I'm just thinking to your question, Wynne. I mean, I think we've talked about this before. If you looked at what everybody is doing on LinkedIn and sharing, it can be quite overwhelming, thinking like, oh God, should I be a master in SQL and DAX and M-Code and Power Automate and the whole 365 suite and PowerPoint and everything else? And actually, you've got to learn what is relevant for whatever you are trying to achieve. And I guess for most finance people, Excel and probably then Power BI is quite a normal progression for most people. And then if you're a real nerd like us, you probably then go like, oh, well, why don't I just learn 3 other coding languages and full automation as well? Because that'd be fun.
Yeah. Just keep chipping away.
Yeah. I like Power Automate a lot.
I like it.
I think it depends on it depends on the expected method of distribution. So what your end user, what are they expecting and what do they want? Because Power BI, right? It's the distribution model is all through the Power BI service, right? So people can go into Power BI and they can view their reports. So if people want reports from data, then Power BI is the best option. So that means your company as a whole has to sign up to whatever licenses they need and use Power BI. But if your distribution model is the fact that you're a finance person who has to send a PowerPoint presentation to your CFO for them to present to the board each week, and then other people are pulling stuff into that PowerPoint presentation, then Power BI, even though it could prepare all those things you need, some Excel and VBA method would be better in terms of that rather than Power BI. So it depends what your distribution is. What's coming out the end, I think, determines what method you're using to get to that point.
It's a good point. Yeah, it's a very good point.
Okay, we've got 5 minutes or so. Recommended, and we're going to be horribly biased here, but what are your recommended learning resources?
And none of us allowed to say our own companies. This is not independent advice.
I can be, because I don't have the training.
Sue, okay. All right, Sue, go first then. What, in terms of any of those topics we've discussed, Power BI, Excel stuff, anything?
Power BI, I do like Wynne's channel a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
I do use that quite a lot.
Any books or courses or anything like that you've read?
Oh, I've done them all, pretty much. For Power BI data modeling, I like SQL BI. They've got a fabulous data modeling for free beginner, and DAX, they've got a free one as well. So I really like their courses. W3 Schools, obviously Mark is a bit of a genius with Excel as well. I also really like the competitions that you do in, and Chandeep, and I see Giles has started Excel BI. So that's quite good for challenging yourself. I do like skill wave training as well for Excel users that are moving into data. And Python and R. I used DataCamp for Python and R, but that was many years ago before. So I'll stop.
Cool.
I've got a fair few YouTube channels that I follow. Again, Mark and Win, I follow your channels. I follow Layla and Dim Early a lot. People like Victor Momo as well, Deb Ashby, who was on. But my YouTube tends to be my go-to for keeping up with things and learning little bits. But I have to say, starting to go through these challenges, which I'm doing recorded, like I'm on Excel BI's challenge 5, warts and all. If I'm struggling, if I sit there just saying for 2 minutes, then that's what I do. But actually just putting this stuff into practice. I think there's only so much you can watch videos about functions. At some point, you've actually just got to get your hands dirty and do it. So the Excel BI challenges. Yeah, but also I would just say like the Excel World Championship stuff, there's a ton of resources you can get involved in.
Microsoft Learn and certification for me. I like the structure. I like sitting the exams and getting a certification. I like Microsoft Learn. It's really good.
Very good.
I would say in terms of resources and books, I think so Ken pulls his book on Power Query, which the second one is, just looking at my bookshelf, Master Your Data with Power Query. So coming from a finance perspective, Ken's an accountant. It's written from an end user perspective. It doesn't go into a huge amount of technical terms. Fantastic book. In terms of using going from Excel to Power BI, I'd recommend Win's book, which is called Power BI for the Excel Analyst.
That's the one.
That's written from an Excel user perspective, going up into Power BI. And in terms of DAX, I like Matt Allington's books, so Supercharge Excel and Supercharge Power BI. They're written from a very accessible point. But all three of those books, you will have to go further. You'll have to look at other things because they're not all encompassing. They're there to get you started and excited and using this stuff. In terms of other places, so courses, I mean, Giles and I both run online training programs. So I would say check one of us out. Obviously, I'd prefer if it's me, but if you don't like me,
they're the best. They're the best two course providers out there in the world, aren't they? As far as
on the planet, yes.
On the planet, not biased at all. Yeah.
No, I mean, books. I mean, I think courses are books. They are structured. They're focused on specific topics. YouTube can be a bit sporadic. You don't know whether you're picking up the right things in the right order, and so therefore you pick things up and then you apply it without realizing that you don't know the fundamentals of how that should work, and also fundamentally when you shouldn't use it. So YouTube is good for bite-sized stuff, but you need to know the fundamentals to start with. So I would say take a course first.
Yeah.
Win, what do you think?
Yeah.
I agree with everything.
No sales.
Yeah, I guess the person I've seen doing the most on Office scripts is Mark's. So he's promoting that well. I don't know if Giles is doing Office script stuff.
Haven't touched it at all yet. No, it's on my list.
So from that side of things. And then, the SQL BI guys, same sort of from a data modeling DAX point of view. And then, same books. I've also got a little, so if you go to pbi.guide, there's a little page, resources page, where I've got all my favorite YouTube channels and other things on there, and the same books that have just been mentioned. So definitely overlap. So I just think, what else should we discuss? Dynamic. I don't really know about the dynamic array and core Excel stuff. Probably, I don't know. Do you guys do the core Excel stuff as well?
You've got a course on that.
You're running those?
Yeah, we both got stuff on that. I'm gonna release a foundations course soon. It's nearly finished, which will be free, and it really will be like basics of some core functions and stuff. So,
Just to double up on Sue's mention of Skill Wave, if you are an end user who wants to go into that data world, I would highly recommend all of Ken's stuff. I mean, his dimensional data modeling and all of his Power Query stuff is. I mean, let's face it. I mean, in terms of Power Query, Ken probably is the OG, isn't he?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
So Skill Wave, exceptional.
Yeah. Gil's book as well is absolutely
Revive.
brilliant on Power Query. Yeah,
I enjoyed that.
I enjoyed that a lot. And of course, Rob Colley. If you're from Excel going into data and Power BI, Rob Colley's book is, and Rob Colley and Avi Singh is the best book ever. And it really makes you giggle and laugh.
Wow.
Indeed.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant.
It's a well-written, just entertaining book as well.
Well-written,
inspirational.
Sounds great.
A little bit dated, perhaps. A little bit dated in terms of all the screenshots and everything, because it's an old Excel, But it's sort of.
That was I felt like I found my tribe when I read that book.
What a life being a published author, hey, for something like Excel or Power BI, where they updated it every time they see an update, they must be like, "Oh, for God's sake!"
Oh,
yeah. I think Rob and Abby's book holds the test of time. But
right. That is awesome. Anybody who is listening to this, please leave your recommendations in the comments online on our LinkedIn page, etc. You can find us on Apple Podcasts and everywhere else. That is an excellent hour. Well done, folks. We actually got pretty much on time.
Fantastic.
Brilliant.
Welcome back, Mark.
Thank you.
Welcome back, Mark.
Is Chris back next time, or is it Mark again?
It's Mark.
I was on fire. You're passionate.
That's right. Awesome. All right, everybody. Enjoy your next couple of weeks, and we'll catch everybody later. Cheers.
Right. Take care, all. Bye. Bye.